go. Hopefully that works.
I'd like to exchange an egg.
I've made my choice, and I choose me.
Attention Beverly Hills 90210 fans. You are now entering a song by song,
You're so precious to me.
episode by episode,
Look, I hate you both. Never talk to me again.
count of the making of America's most famous zip
May
code.
the bridges I burn light the way.
With producers Charles Rosen and Larry Mullen, and your host, Pete Ferrero.
Hey guys, don't go away, man. Just go away.
It's now time for the Beverly Hills 90210 show.
Okay, new intro. We are back again.
Nice.
Here we are on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. We got our usual suspects in Larry Mullen and Chuck Rosen. Larry, how's your week been for you?
Well, it's been a tough week because we had a drowning out front of me. It was very sad.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. I think he was a WWE wrestler, right?
Yeah, he came in right after me in 2006. He was in the minors when I was there. He was in the what's called the Ohio Valley League.
Yeah. Oh, so that's right around where you live. That's a very
right in front. Yeah, it was very tragic.
Yeah, what a horrific story.
But other than that, we're California's moving along.
Yes,
we're doing well.
we're doing to flatten the curve, right? And then we have Chuck Rosen here. Chuck, how's your week been?
Well, unlike the person that drowned, I got in the water and I caught waves.
There you
So
go.
it was just great for me. First time in 2020.
Yeah.
But it was the day before, and I do understand. I'm not making light of it.
No,
that the way when they get really big, in where we live in the Marina, Venice Beach, the mid Santa Monica Bay, the current can get really rough. And if you're really not an expert, it's tough stuff.
Yeah. And then Lilly, how's everything been with you, with the fans, and all the conversations going on in the groups? All good on your end? Lilly?
All is well. All is well.
That's
Very good.
And joining us here is the person who won our contest, Jessica Andrews. She gave a really awesome review. She said that Wednesdays are her favorite day, is mine as well. So we're going to let you ask a few questions. But Larry, I want to ask you about this. BuzzFeed sharing your story.
Did we go viral? We went viral. I haven't heard from Jason, but he manned up probably.
Okay.
What are you gonna say? It ain't bragging. It's true.
He and Naomi.
Later, everyone's happy.
He and Naomi just had their wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Very
I mean,
nice.
everyone's happy.
Yeah.
So.
And then we got to see you both on this thing, the real special. I mean, that was pretty cool, guys, right?
Can you get that?
Well, I thought so, but then I have one of my real sources, one of my go-tos in 90210 lore is Sherry, and she said there was nothing new in it. So I think as good as that was, all the things, I think our podcast might be more interesting because people are getting stuff that's new.
That's interesting you say that because when I was watching it, I was like, we covered that already.
Exactly.
I think Jerry.
I don't know for Larry, but I know for myself, some of the more interesting stories I may have shared, and they didn't make it. I don't know if you feel that way, Larry.
I don't recall. I mean, but Sherry did send me an email the next day saying that story you first told me of my column like 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. But she's someone who maybe will join us one of these days.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, she started. She was very good as a early blogger, early Zip blogger. She had the what was it called? The shameless teen whore or something?
Teen drama whore.
Teen drama whore.
Very cool. All right.
You were never a teen drama whore, right, Jessica?
No.
Before we get to Jessica's questions, a couple of people asked me follow-ups from the previous episodes that we did to see if you had any insight on this. Now, going back to Beach Blanket Brandon, somebody wants to know what was up with Kelly's voice at the top of the episode. If you remember that, her voice was hoarse. You remember anything
Was
about
Jenny
that?
really sick?
Well, that would be my guess. I mean, it's not something that even watching it again, her voice didn't bother me. She probably, she was just probably screaming in around the thing. I can't believe we're back. I can't believe we didn't get canceled. I can't believe it. I can't. And she ran her voice out. You know.
And then for Larry, somebody wants to know from the Valerie episode. You had said something about always wanting Brenda back, that you guys always were trying to shoot for Brenda back. If Brenda came back, this is now a hypothetical, and I know we hate hypotheticals sometimes on this show, but if we had Brenda back, what is it like for you guys with Brenda and Valerie being in the same cast and show? Was there any kind of fun plans for the two of them, or just all kind of speculation?
I mean, it obviously never came to that, so it never, she wouldn't be living in the Walsh house at that point. I don't think that I feel that would be different, but no, they would have, I think, Brenda would have had a relationship with Val from Buffalo, or from their families being friends, the same way Brandon did when they were young kids. In fact, she might have even had a closer relationship with Val. They might have been a dynamic duo because she would have been the same age, obviously. So,
well, also, I mean, I never heard of. I've never thought of that prospect because I was gone. And anyway, but remember, they were close friends from Buffalo.
That's right.
They knew each other well. I mean, just like, with Brandon. So could have been some interesting stuff.
Right away.
Yeah, it would have been good. It could have been them against the world.
Yes.
Zara is always good with comments, and he said, "Oh my God, that would have been so crazy." So yes.
So let me just point out, Zara is a she. You've referred to her as he a couple times. She's a she.
I think maybe on the Facebook, maybe there's a picture of a guy, so I just assumed it.
I did too, and I have a character I'm writing now called Zara, who's a female. So I'm very glad that it's a female.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's an Egyptian name. It's an Egyptian name.
So sorry about that. Okay, now Jessica, you're up. You have some questions for us, so it's your turn. I'm going to turn the show over to you. You have a few questions for the guys, so go ahead. And I'm going to leave our little Beverly Hills 90210 showshop.com on the bottom there in case anybody wants like a Legacy Key t-shirt or Roy Randolph's Royal Academy.
Do you guys like mine?
We do. That's not one of ours. So
I'm sorry. I have this actually made.
What did you say? I can't see. I have to put my glasses on.
I really like it a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I got you.
Right.
All right. So my first question is, who was your favorite guest star to write for on the show?
Good question.
For me, I would say it's kind of close to this time. I remember we're talking about the character, not the actual performer.
Yeah, the character.
I really enjoyed and did a lot of this with Chip Johannesson, the Lucinda character, because you could write this kind of crazy. She was a cultural anthropologist or something, and we'd always have snippets of her class, and you could stuck in all these kind of weird facts. I think we had like Eskimos who were polygamists, or all kinds of kind of crazy stuff, which theoretically would validate her libertine personality.
Yeah. Okay. I love her. I think she's great. I think we could do a whole thing on that little triangle with Brandon and the teacher. It's great. That's some great stuff you guys did there. How about for you, Charles? Do you have somebody that?
Yeah. Well, I sure liked in what we're going to be talking about.
Now we lost. We
Chris Williams.
We had an audio problem, but go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I really liked. I know we're going to be talking about him, but I really enjoyed looking at Chris Williams.
Yeah, me too.
I thought he was terrific. But the person I would go with was just someone who in season 5, and the actor's name is Jonathan Grise, and he played Dylan's drug dealer.
Oh, okay.
And in the Dreams of Dylan McKay, he's the guy who's the devil and who's just begging him to shoot up.
Yeah.
And I met him the first time when he walked into the final audition at CBS for the character of Chris in the Morning on Northern Exposure. And without giving too much away, the creatives wanted Jonathan, and the guy who did it was terrific. I'm not taking anything away, but I've always admired him and was really happy he came back. And he was like, if you look at that art for the 4 scenes that shows he had to do in a row, he was pitch perfect every second. So he's the one that stands out for me.
I got to meet him at a party maybe about 10 years ago, and he loved that. He loved doing that show. And you forget, he also was in Napoleon Dynamite. He had a big part in Napoleon Dynamite.
And Get Shorty. He was in Get Shorty. He was one of the guys in that. And I knew his brother was in my high school class at Beverly High. So I knew his father was a very famous TV movie director of a previous era, Tom Grice.
Yeah. I think we should say, Chuck, that we did steal a little scene from Exorcist, didn't we? Like the moment, like, hey, Father, you want to help an old parishioner out, or some kind of a no, it
wasn't that. It wasn't that one. Yes. Oh, it was. I'll give when we get to that episode, I'll remember. It was a movie that starred Tim Robbins. He played a Vietnam vet, and that's where I stole most of the episode. But as Larry's saying that to needle me, I'm looking over to my wall, which says, "Bad artists copy, good artists steal." That's from Pablo Picasso.
Yes.
I'll rest my laurel. My motto in teaching my class to writers at UCLA was steal from the best. So.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, Jessica, you got something else?
My next one would be, where would you have liked to seen the show go if you had continued writing after the college years?
I guess that's probably better for Larry, right? I mean, because
it's pretty obvious. I mean, Brandon was a drier fellow. He would have a fantastic job. He would live somewhere in the Wilshire corridor or downtown in a great place. David would be making his first feature. Everyone would be doing something terrific.
Yeah.
And that would be the conflict. Can you handle success in the real world, as opposed to just making it small and doing a little thing? And they had no courage.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure, Chuck, you were removed, so I'm sure you don't have too much on that, on what you thought. Is there maybe one character you thought you'd like to see do something?
Oh, I think that Larry's suggestion is this. Certainly I did lose touch at the last 2 years of college. But, I was just looking at something today that just some snarky critic that was rating the different seasons. And, it's just the 8, 9, and 10 just don't exist. So. Yeah. So what Larry says to do, the actors were willing, the actors were there, and if we had done a good and given something like that, we could have continued to reach high. I will say one thing that does happen.
They didn't grow. There was no growth.
After a while, Jessica, what happens after a while on a television show is that the management becomes complacent. Mm-hmm. You're going to watch the show. You and the fans are going to watch the show no matter what, and so that need to let's push, let's change, let's be creative, let's go where no one goes, that went away. And when Larry left, it just totally went away. So we didn't have that in the last 3 years.
You got another one. Hey Larry, is it possible for you to check in on our special person to see if they're going to? Oh, never mind, he just emailed me. Never mind, I got it. Okay, Jessica, what's your next question?
The next one would be, did any of the cast members give you guys story ideas, like different storylines that you could use?
Yes. Nobody more than Luke Perry, who walked into my office at the end of the second season, and all actors were open. I wanted the actors to tell me what they wanted to do. I wanted to make the actors happy. That is really the goal of it, right? Because if they're happy, they're going to like what they're doing, and we're going to see it on the screen, and then they can feel really like partners. And I also needed them to know what they wanted. And Luke walked in after the second season. At the end of the second season, he was very disappointed with how we used. We allowed ourselves to be a vehicle for the spinoff of Melrose. He didn't like that. He was very 90210 centric, and he let me know that. And then he said, we got to change it up, and I want to work with the blonde.
Now, yes, we lost Jessica again.
And she was startled to hear that. But that was, and also, so Brian Austin Green took advantage of that as well. Others tried, but they were the two that really, a lot of story ideas that involved their characters came from them.
Tammy says it wasn't the same after Charles and Larry. Very nice comment, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
Hey, really quick, is it too late to move either the Beverly Hills 90210 show shop or the caption over to the other side? Because I have people trying to read the caption and it's kind of overlapping with the show shop.
Okay, I can remove that comment. There we go. Yes. No problem. I didn't realize that there was captions. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
News to me. Okay. Well, we lost Jessica. If she comes back, we'll let her ask her other question. But why don't we start jumping into crunch time, keg, all of this kind of stuff. Let's start at the top. Let's talk about college, right? I mean, we kind of alluded to previously that it was a big deal to start doing college. This is one of the first shows, if probably the first show, that transitions high school to college. So what is some of that like for you, some of those conversations, Chuck?
Well, remember that the decision to move ahead and go to college had to happen in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could not start your last year of high school unless, wow, we're seniors. So the decision to do college was solidified then. And now we had to execute. And this was also the debut of Melrose Place. And so, the question was, is they were going to get a lot of the promotional sizzle that Fox had to offer. And so what we looked for is, well, and it became pretty clear really early on that we were not going to be the top dog in the spelling outfit until we got some episodes played in college, that people were willing to come back, to give us a try in this. And so the one thing, and without getting into too much, inside baseball, lots of the top executives that had come in there in this were very, very nervous and talking to me in a way that they hadn't before. And I'm not talking about my friend Sandy Grushow here, or even Dan McDermott, who were there. Just others around, people who came in, Lucy Salhaney, were very, very nervous about what was going to happen here. I'm just going to finish this thought out, Jess, and then we'll get you back on. And so I had to basically say, look, you're going to have to wait. When we get to sweeps, we will be your number one show, but it's going to take us some time to build. So Larry and I were part of the building block. What are we going to do? And Larry was.
It works.
And hello, Ryan.
Hello.
Yeah, let me just say we have Ryan Thomas Brown with us. Morton Muntz is joining us today. He's going to talk a little bit about keg with us. Sorry to cut you off, Chuck. You can finish your thought about that.
Well, quickly, we realized that Mr. Spelling, when he agreed to college, his college was going to be Pepperdine. He wanted it to be the big school in Malibu with the big lawn. And I told him I didn't want to go, that was not, Malibu U was not what an average kid would be having. And I got, let's make college what most kids are going through, because you got to realize that all of us went to high school, and high school had sports, we had prom, they had activity, this kind of a uniform thing to it. College, you can be at a big state school, a liberal arts school, an Ivy, a community college. Nobody has the same college experience. So we had to define what it was. And California University filmed at Occidental College seemed like the right mix for us.
Very cool. All right. Let me show you guys. I mean, look, months. Holy cow, months.
Yeah.
Yay, months. We love months. Welcome.
And there's also a shout out to Larry's dog. Lori says she loves your dog, Larry.
Oh,
there we go. All right, Jessica, before we get into keg and months, let's talk about your last question. You had one more question, I think, right?
Yeah, I'll direct this towards Ryan. Do you have any fun behind the scenes stories that you can share about the cast when you were on set?
Fun stories behind the scenes.
I have to say one thing.
I
turn this over to Chuck, because I learned early on as a writer, if you want to be a successful writer, never go to the set, never talk to the actors, are two of the main things you're taught. And I listened to those things. Chuck, he's been to the set.
Yeah, because I had to go because of my administrative duty. But the I learned that doing a lot of television movies. You know, just don't the actors don't really like you very much, so just go away. And so I don't know what went on in the set too much, a little bit, but not the way that Ryan has all the inside scoop. I know.
Ryan, what happened?
So what do you got, Ryan?
Bill, Ryan, come on.
There were plenty of stories, but one that really sticks out is we were in a scene. I was doing a scene with Luke Perry, and I asked him when we were done filming, "Hey, could you come back to my dressing room and sign a script for me so I could give it to my little sister?" And unbeknownst to me, my stepmother, my little sister, her friend, and her daughters were all in my dressing room. They showed up one day just to surprise me. So as we're walking back to my dressing room, you know, Luke's taking off his shirt, starting to get ready to get changed. And I open up my dressing room door, and there's my entire family just sitting there. And Luke is like, I'm going to come back in a second. That kind of took me by surprise as well. So, but yeah, there was, I mean, so many fun times and stories behind the scenes that, I think back on those days and what an amazing time to be a part of such a incredible television show that a lot of people watched and a lot of people loved
and still do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Jessica, we're going to let you go, but do you have anything else that you want to say to Chuck or Larry? Do you have anything?
No, I just thank you guys so much. Like, this show, it like cheers me up every time I watch it. I love it.
That's awesome.
Thanks. I just want to ask you, Jessica, where are you from? Where are we talking to each other?
Connecticut.
Oh, that's where Lilly, that's her country there.
We're in Connecticut.
Like in the Hartford area.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
My nephew lives in West Hartford, so there you go.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm right next to West Hartford.
Oh, there you go. All right, Jessica, thank you. And we will definitely have another contest at some point where one of you will get an opportunity to join us. So don't panic. There will be more chances like that moving forward as we move on to this. Okay, let's get into talking about some of the keg stuff. Chuck, was it something that you guys decided early on, like, hey, we need to get a fraternity, you know, and all that kind of stuff? How does that sort of start building? Well,
it's interesting. Is for a TV show that really, at least in seasons 4 and seasons 5, you know, depicted Greek life mostly in a pretty positive way. There was some bigotry at one point. There were these weird things with some of the keg guys, but they were charitable. They were social in this. You would have no idea that when I was at Berkeley, the best parties I went to were in frat houses that had gone out of business. Mm-hmm. And we just assumed that all the frat houses were going to go out of business. And then in my senior year, there was an uptick in pledging. Yep. And by 1980, Cal Berkeley is goodbye revolution. It's a frat school. Yep. And so none of us, Larry, you weren't in a frat, were you? None of us were frat guys.
Well, I graduated college in 1968. I mean, there were no frats.
Exactly. So we, tried to realize that Steve was really the instant connection, as his father was in the cake house. Larry, you named the cake house, I think, right?
Yep.
How did you come up with keg? I'm curious.
I spent hours trying to put the Greek letters together and get it cleared to find out there was one. And when I realized that I had Kappa and Epsilon, I couldn't wait till I got Gamma because I thought I could do keg, and it was there. It was a lot available. It was kind of lame and dumb, but it was still beautiful. It was like a
lame and dumb. No, sir, it was genius. It was genius.
And then we had for the girls, I think, Chuck, we had the Alphas, I think, Alpha Omega.
Yes,
maybe?
the name of the Alpha, and they were the sister and brother fraternity. Yeah. So as you would expect from our group, Steve, Kelly, and Donna become into the Greek system.
Sure.
Andrea has a brush, doesn't really care for it. That's a whole other episode.
Yeah,
Brandon, much better to be the independent guy and be over. And I don't think he even had political ambitions when he was starting. He just, frats were its own thing. He was in the indie. And
And
Dylan and
Dylan would
Brenda,
never.
forget about it. Huh?
Yeah.
And David wasn't his scene either. I mean,
No.
Well, college has a lot of activities, right? A lot of things to get to. And he was a big deal at he and Donna, the radio show at high school, and they were going to follow it up. And it was great. I know this is the focus on the keg, but in the Crunch Time episode, you're in a midpoint of him and all his, David, the freshman boy who gets just too caught up in the lifestyle of being a college freshman.
Yeah.
Into this. And I know it happened to at least two young people I knew at my first year at University of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Let me ask you about one of the most important people in Keg is obviously John Sears, the character John Sears. How did you guys cast John Sears? Were you around for some of those? Did he read? We talked about that on one of the other episodes or did you guys know that you wanted him? Or, Paul Johansson's amazing.
Oh, well, it's pretty clear,
Yeah.
DJ, as he was introduced to me, was from Canada.
Yeah.
And if you were from Canada and you were a friend of Jason Priestley and you didn't trip over the chair as you walked in the room and had a modicum of ability, welcome to Beverly Hills 90210. and PJ. So he was the guy, and he was really perfect in so many ways. And if you think of the conflict that he and Steve would ultimately happen, well, he was, that north of Sunset rich kid, Beverly Hills kid, but who never had let his conscience be his guide. And now he's a senior. So he's like almost the embodiment of Steve's, the worst parts of Steve's character on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
It was really like to see him. I can't remember if he auditioned or not, if we just gave him the part. I can't quite remember.
He probably auditioned. I'm sure he did because
he was really good.
You had to be a recurring character to get a part, and meaning that would be in credits. If you look at the credits on this Crunch Time episode, in the front end credits, if they still run those in syndication, who the F knows? But you'll see that he got a special credit because he had a special role. So by doing that, he gets a few more dollars, and so he did that. But we did not have a hold on him. For instance, same thing with Ryan. We knew that, hey, there's gonna be things in the cake house. One of the first things our casting director, whose name was Diane Young, would call around to certain people and see, are they available? Because we didn't have them on a series contract where you're damn well they better be available because we paid to it. And so we find out that. And so one of the things of value of working with someone like Larry is that he had the same kind of drive to get way far ahead. So we knew, at least in story, what we were plotting out to do so that we could contact the talent and say, we're reserving.
Yeah.
But please don't book. We want you, et cetera, et cetera.
The other guys in the keg house, I was going to say, I was surprised because I recognized, like, the guy who plays Artie, who runs the test, was a friend of mine. He used to coach with me, Todd Bryant. He's a very, very well-known stuntman in Hollywood. He's been for years now. Did you know him at all, Ryan? The guy who played Todd Bryant?
The guy who played who?
He played Artie, the Nordic-looking guy in the fraternity. But he runs the test. He's the one who sets the test up, the thing at the end. But I forget.
Okay.
I didn't even know who you're talking about. Yeah.
But I said, oh my God, there's Todd Bryant. So sometimes you could help. You could give people act. He got the part. He auditioned for it. But you could, as a producer, and Chuck knows this, we always tried to give access to people we knew and believed in. You couldn't give them the part, but you could get them to get up there and audition. Yes,
and if they had talent, you'd see them. Many of the women who have more, I won't say women roles in their 30s and 40s, they had children in the Center for Early Education. They were actresses, but that's how I knew them. And they had a leg up. And if they walked in and did a good job, they were going to get it.
Yeah.
I still remember when I auditioned for the show.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. Magda says she hated all the John Sears in her high school. Okay.
I understand, Magda.
Yeah, it was well done. Ryan, tell me about that. That's an interesting. What was your experience like auditioning for the show?
I mean, it was just like going on to audition for anything really, but it was more exciting because it was 90210, and I had moved to Los Angeles, and I told all my friends that I went to high school with, it's like, look, if I move down to LA, I'm gonna be on 90210. And they're all like, yeah, get out of here, whatever. Well, as it turns out, I was on 90210, so I often bring that up to them to kind of rub their face in a little bit.
And you lasted a lot longer than Larry and I see.
Yeah.
I
you went all the way to the end.
You were there all the way to the end, right?
I was. It was awesome to have you guys say, yeah, you know what, you're pretty funny. We'd like you to come back and do another episode, and that meant the world to me. But to have it go on for 6 years was just amazing in itself.
Well, you earned it, buddy. You were really good in the part.
What was it like working with Ian? What was it like working with Ian Ziering? I mean, I feel like you probably get to work with him the most of the act alongside of him because of all the keg stuff, right?
Yeah.
What's Ian like for you? Is he was it an amazing experience?
Ian Ziering is such an awesome dude, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Everybody really on the show. I never had a problem with anybody. It was one of those shows where it was a pleasure to show up every time because everybody was cool. It was like a family. It was like doing theater in high school where everybody's working together for the common good. But Ian, a very generous person, very likable, very friendly. I remember one time we got done filming an episode, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" And it's like, "Nothing." It's like, "You want to go to Toronto?" I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah, Toronto. I got to do this meet and greet at their whatever their version of Disneyland is. I forget what it is." He goes,
Wonderland.
Yeah. And he's like, just show up and I'll bring you out on stage and we'll see if we can't, trip people out. So I went up with him. He paid for my entire trip. He paid for my flight, my hotel room, gave me some spending cash. I mean, it was such a fun experience to walk out, not only be a part of his meet and greet, but to walk out on stage and to look out into the crowd and see people holding up Muntz signs was beyond my imagination. I was just like, oh my God, they know who I am.
Lori says
they were Canadian. They were
Bear Muntz. So there you go, Lori. Yes. That's awesome. Okay, Chuck, you want to jump in now and start talking to me a little bit about, we have a lot of presidents of the fraternity, right? We have one president's name, but multiple actors playing the president. Right, Mike Ryan is the
no. There's a president in Little Fish. There's a president in Little Fish.
Oh, I know. Yes, right. So we had the first president we had was not was one of those actors that wanted to do the show, and we did the show, and he, a handsome guy, good guy, has some chops, and was in demand. So when we called back and said, "Hey, we need you in 2 weeks," no, he's doing a TV movie or whatever else he was booking at the time. So many times in 90210, I mean, I think we had 3 Jack McKays until we really had to settle on one that we really needed. Kelly had at least 5 fathers. I have no idea, but we just need somebody. It wasn't that important to me, clearly. But in James of the President, it was the same way. And in Crunch Time, the one we're going to focus on first, we had the one president, and he did and from what I'd seen in the episode, I think he did a really good job. But we're going to not. You want to talk about Crunch Time first, Peter, or you want me to get right into the other? I
think you can go right into you're writing these episodes, Crunch Time, and the storyline develops that's coming later in the season, right? That where Steve and Brandon are going to go to a coffee shop that turns out to be a gay coffee shop.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm a big Dodger fan, and went to a lot of games. And when you know the shortcuts, you drive through residential neighborhoods, drive way too fast. That's the LA way. And there I was going through Silver Lake, and Silver Lake was always been a gay part of town, West Hollywood and Silver Lake. And it struck me as, hey, what if the car broke down? All these guys, and I think we started kicking it around, and it was an episode that was meaningful to us because it was the first time that we had even tried to deal with male sexuality since the second season. And the thing is that I had done some writing about this before, and I just, if you all guys indulge me, I'm just going to read something that puts into context what the world that Larry and I were doing as we were putting this episode, talking about it for the first times. America was in the closet in 1994 when Blind Spot originally aired. The don't ask, don't tell policy, the closeted one of the U.S. Army, was inserted by the Clinton administration after its Secretary of Defense tried and failed to allow gays in the military. Magic Johnson had been diagnosed as HIV positive a few years earlier, and he was forced to leave the NBA after being cleared to play because a fellow professional basketball player, Karl Malone, refused to play against him for fear that he'd be exposed to AIDS at the time. Determined not to be cowed by homophobia, gay activists from Queer Nation and ACT UP in Hollywood began demonstrating in the streets while following the Harvey Milk adage that the more closeted gays they could out, the less chance the closeted ones could maintain a homophobic posture in public. Ted Haggart was one of the evangelists who falls into that. So that's the background with which we're doing it, and it was not, so in this one area, I think that it was, looking back at it now, it is surprising that the actors who played the parts, the one that we see in Crunch Time, I'm going to talk about, did not want to be in this episode, even though there was no display of affection. It's just that it was a gay actor, and the character was gay, and that actor's managers, actor's agent, whatever it is, did not want to be quote unquote type. And I found that disturbing.
Are you writing the episode and thinking, okay, we have the actor, and then somebody says it's not happening, he doesn't want to?
Yes, we didn't even think about that. Believe me, in this particular episode, I don't, it was a very tough one for us to write. Larry was not necessarily on this writing team, I don't think. But when we're going to do Crunch Time, we look at that, there were two writers, Larry and a writer producer that we had in the fourth and partially in the fifth year named Richard Gollins. And Richard Gollins was a member of ACT UP. Richard Gollins was a sincere gay activist. I didn't know when I hired him. It didn't matter to me. I read a script. I thought, oh, this guy's kind of funny, and he's got some pattern. And we were getting in new people, just like we brought in Larry. And well, let's try people out. You have to try to see if they could do it. And Crunch Time was made one of our first double ups, and we'll talk about double ups later. I know because Peter knows it's a point of pride for Larry and I.
Yes,
we did so many extra episodes.
Well, briefly, just for anyone who doesn't know, double ups are essentially that you're filming two episodes at the same exact time.
So correct. We were doing 32 a season.
Yeah.
And what that meant is you were also then doing two that you were prepping, two that you were filming, and two that were in post-production. So the conveyor belt never stopped. And Richard had he was in the middle of a script. I can't even tell you which one it was. Maybe it was Crunch. I don't know. But he was not available to write the script of Blind Spot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so the writer we used was really our first director on became a production manager named Ken Stringer. And it was like, because you want to give people opportunity. If it is really a family, you've got to let people do things. So James Eckhouse could direct, and Ken Stringer wanted to write. Okay, you can write. And this was the episode that came down that we needed someone to write. And Richard was pretty upset that we had done that and given it to a straight man to write this episode. To tell you the truth, and more than a little. And so he got to do a rewrite on it. And Larry and I were just talking about this the other day because I thought it was a pretty good rewrite, but we had other people involved and they wanted some different lines, and those lines were pretty good too. And I just wanted the stuff to work. And so it didn't really matter that much to me. We've talked about who gets the credit for what. I just want the stuff to work so the audience is entertained and I'm not embarrassed because it's going to be a good scene and or a good show, whatever it would be. And so that was a hard one, and it always is something I have to think about when we get into this episode. Both how difficult it was to cast and how much friction it cost in the writer's room. And I think Larry,
I think that episode also had the Deshaun and Donna Martin thing, which we had the problem
on the date.
You're talking about we're
Let's not get ahead of it. Yeah,
we're kind of ahead of ourselves on Blind Spot, but we will.
Yeah, that was. I surprised you want to talk about it, but okay.
Yeah, but we can dive into that a little bit later. But I mean, right. I think it's fascinating to me, though, in that time that you are sitting in a writing room, writing episodes, Crunch Time, and all these other episodes. And as you're approaching Blind Spot, there's an actor that doesn't want to necessarily be. Now you have to kind of recast the president, right?
Yes, but not as onerous as you're making it sound.
Okay.
I mean, because the character had 3 scenes.
Yeah.
4 scenes. But oddly enough, it was the one that the character got had some real acting,
it was a great
potential for it, in that one.
All right, let's shift back to Crunch Time. Lily, do you have any before we hop in here, let me give you an opportunity. Do you have any Crunch Time questions for Chuck and Larry, or anything for Muntz before we hop into the specifics of Crunch Time?
Well, you guys have pretty much covered what I had as far as Keg House and Steve Sanders is related, but I do have other questions about this episode that don't pertain to Steve or Keg House.
That's cool.
So maybe I'll hold off. You want me to hold on?
No, go ahead. What do you got?
It's about David and the drugs.
Okay.
So this is the first episode that we see David start taking drugs. And one of the questions we had was there any extra preparation that Brian had to do in order to get?
Yeah, he had to go clubbing on the strip with Shannon and Tori. I think that was his research.
I have to say, I thought Brian was terrific in this episode. Man, he does the whole speed rap, which is so fantastic, and he really is just out there with this.
Well, when he comes back in and he's telling Donna about his episode of the radio show, and did you catch it or whatever? I feel like that's me after one of these podcasts.
Well, it's the interesting thing. I remember and it was Steve Wasserman that I wanted to have somebody burning out. He said, well, if he's doing this all night, he's got to take stimulants to stay up. Let's get him into meth. Meth is addictive. Meth to me was, Hell's Angels and shit. I wasn't that interested in, but okay, it wasn't one of my vices. So, okay, we can do this. And so I think he had put that one in, and I think that whole, Brian, that talking about how fast he did and how did that just seemed, very true. And as we were saying, it's that freshman in college trying to make a spot, just to fit in.
Yeah.
I want to say, because I want to write that stuff, but I got to write the meth thing. And I don't know if you remember, Chuck, but broadcast standards, of course, would not let us snort it. So we had to find a way to get it to him. So I went out and I spoke to 2 addict friends of mine who were basically roadies, who were truckers. And they both told me orange juice, that way, you get high and you get a little nourishment, and it worked great. I mean,
because you got to stay nourished.
And
that's right. That's right. You're going to grind your teeth. You need some vitamin C.
Vitamin C.
Listen,
but I like that. And yes, so in other words, what you're saying in terms of the network era is that, okay, you run into a roadblock. How are we going to get around it?
Yeah.
And is there a way? So I'm glad you did that research because you would have needed to see it.
Yeah.
And I think it was done well.
Yeah.
But we never pretty much. I mean, it goes back to Tiffany. You didn't see her inhale. We just didn't have that very much. I can't speak for later years, but we did.
Yeah. No, I don't think that they ever went that way. Tori's great in this episode too. The way she plays that heartbroken, lost love of David. I mean, I think she's phenomenal in this episode as well.
It looks like she's got to give it up to David. She comes in there and she's got to sleep with him, and he turns her down.
Yeah, because
I forgot that wrinkle.
Yeah,
you forget. Like sometimes the spur of the moment, she might have done it.
Muntz, you remember the episode? I don't even know if you know the episode. I don't know if you know the episode we're talking about, Ryan. Crunch Time, where the test happens and all of that stuff. Do you remember doing the scenes at the volleyball game at all? Normally I have a clip, but we're not doing clips anymore. Do you remember the scene where you're kind of eating the candy bar? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me your perspective of shooting that scene at least.
Man, it's funny. This is also years ago.
Yeah.
But thinking back, every time that I went in to film, I didn't really go in thinking that I had to be some sort of character. I just kind of played myself. So anytime I'm presented with an opportunity to make somebody laugh, or even try to just throw the comedy on myself and make fun of myself, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So when the moon pie became available, I'm like, I'm all about these moon pies. I mean, honestly, the moon pies, they're delicious. Of course I'm going to play it up.
Yeah. Oh, it's brilliant, man. I mean, and Steve gets rejected, and he's not allowed. He was in the volleyball championships 2 years in a row at the beach club, and he's not coming into the game.
Right. And this was the Crunch Time, if I remember correctly. That's the black ball episode, right?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that ceremony and all that stuff. I want to ask you, Chuck, on this too. In this episode, we also see Deshaun. He's got to take the test and all this stuff. Where does Deshaun's character come from? I don't know that we've ever talked about him yet on this podcast. Maybe just a little bit about the Donna thing, but how did that storyline of Brandon tutoring the Deshaun come to be?
Right. Well, my freshman year, I spent a very cold freshman year in college in Madison, Wisconsin, and before I transferred back to Berkeley. And I was taking a sociology of deviance class, and it was trying to make it, for the students. And it was not a difficult class, quite frankly, because he was a cool teacher. He taught it, professor, young guy, sociology, and he would, and then he'd give you a quiz. And if you did well on the quiz, you passed out. You were good. So in 12 weeks, if you worked hard and passed all the quizzes, you were an A student. And I had nothing to do. I was a freshman boy in college, and it was cold. And so I got to that status pretty quickly. And I went to the professor to tell him, hey, I did good, and I may be a social major. I didn't know. I just wanted to meet the professor. And he said, you got some free time. We got a student that needs some help. And I, oh, really? And then it was a student who was on a freshman who was playing for the freshman team, not the varsity at that point. And also it was preseason. It was, forget what I said about the freshman and varsity. I don't know if that applied, but I do know it was preseason.
Uh-huh.
And I had 2 to 3 sessions with a basketball player. And unlike Deshaun, who in our story hurts himself on the court and has to be in that situation where maybe you're not going to be the coddled athlete anymore. What's going to be with you? This guy, unfortunately, in Wisconsin, he was a native of Wisconsin. He was coddled the whole way. And although he passed the test with a C, he really that made him eligible. He never really panned out in what they had hoped for. And I believe he did get an injury, but not that first year. That was the second year.
Yeah.
I I want to say, I think the show was I know I got the character credit on it, so I know it must have been one of the scripts that were maybe it was Moving Targets, but I remember the first day of him shooting, we cast the guy, we loved his look and everything, and again we as producers, I guess we didn't always do our homework, like can he play basketball? Chuck sent me down to Occidental that morning. He had other stuff he was doing, so I go to the gym there and I introduced myself, and Chuck, I was afraid to tell you, but he couldn't really play. It wasn't natural. He was a good athlete, but it wasn't natural to him. Like he had grown up playing, in the hood, like
Right.
we imagined in our heads.
Right. As you wrote the character.
I said, yeah, he's doing good. He's doing good. And we had to piece together some shots, and then Jason comes in and actually has a shot with him too. He has to hit. So it worked out in the morning and the shooting of it. But it was I went, oh no, you gotta check these things out beforehand. You keep
That's
making
funny. Well, he was a college student. I think he was at UCLA. And he's gone on really a lot of pride. He's just gone on to have a wonderful career.
He's great.
Been in about 12 series as a recurring character and a star. And
he's phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, I love the Deshaun character. I think we don't talk about him enough on here. I mean, I don't know, he's not the center of our show, but I mean, I do love what you guys did with him. Now, Chuck, I want to ask you, did you guys always get feedback about having African-American characters on the show? I feel like 90210 always got slack for not having enough characters of that nature. Did you ever have conversations with people about things like that?
Was this before or after the SAG Screen Actors Guild told us we were enforcing racist policies? That was at the end of my the first season. So as you're going into summer episodes. Oh, and by the way, you guys are all a bunch of racists, and that's really what it kind of said. And it was because we made the case. We said, look, we didn't have the time. We didn't have the money to have that many guest stars. We were doing our own cast. We did what we could, and we did do, for lack of a better way to describe it, race-centric episodes. One with basketball in the first year, one with a girl from East Los Angeles that sees a crime that moves in with the wall, starts to go to West Beverly using the wall. And then
Oh man,
that's going to be totally different. That has to do with Jay Winston. That was payback time on that one. But anyway, so we were always looking for that. We did. And after that first season, we weren't cited for that. We were cited for everything else we ever did, but not for that.
But I mean, I think you've told me that you had a conversation with somebody about this Deshaun thing, and that they said that there was no African Americans or something like that on the show. Oh, yeah. You want to hear that story?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good story. I thought. Yeah,
it's not bad. Yeah. So Larry, you remember in the 5th season, near the end, you probably were writing Palm Springs. I went up to a conference at Stanford about children in television, and it was a big thing from the Kaiser Family Foundation, and a lot of people doing television were there. Winnie Holtzman was there, a lot of with My So-Called Life. I mean, everybody was in this room that was making stuff for teenagers. And in the night before, I'm sitting next to I hope someone knows this person so can actually say to her, hey, you were mentioned. Carol Simpson, who was a anchor for ABC News and was African American, was sitting next to me, and she said, my daughter had told me I should ask you a question, and I said, well, ask me. He said, I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow. And so instead of asking me a question that I could have easily answered and changed it right at that moment at the dinner table, waits till the next day. And in the middle of a presentation that has nothing to do with Beverly Hills 90210, she turns to me, I'm in the audience, about 90 people, and asks me why the first Black person to ever be on the show was an illiterate Black basketball player. So that's like asking somebody, when did you stop beating your wife? And I told her that she really was mistaken. She didn't really know our show. She didn't realize that we often featured this. I said that, by the way, I did this in real life. I didn't make this up.
Right.
I made it up, but I made it up into this. And also, I cited Crunch Time because I said what he did. He took his own test. He did his own thing. It was a perfect thing. And why are you singling me out here? Why are you wasting other people's time when you know you could have asked me this yesterday?
Right.
And that was the last time I ever watched ABC News. Yeah.
That's that. Okay.
That was that story.
Well, we were low-hanging fruit. We were low-hanging fruit.
Zara, who is definitely
that's the way it was, bro.
She says, "Thank you, Rosen, for being honest." So
you're welcome.
There you go. All right. Now, in other news here on this episode, and I don't want to go too far into this because I know that we could do a whole episode about Dylan's family, right? But in this episode, so we start seeing Dylan has a new family, which is very great for that character. You said previously in some, I don't remember where we did this, but you said that Aaron Spelling did not believe that anyone would buy this storyline. So is that true? That's a thing, right?
And we'll get into it much more when we really do our deep dive into Dylan family. But yes, and I assured him that by the end of the season, no one will share your concerns. And I told him we would work very hard for that. And if he ever thought we were not making a good case, you let me know in that part of the script, and we'll definitely look at it and most likely change it. And he was very happy with how the plot line turned out.
Oh, yeah, the long con.
I think everybody liked it. It was a long one. Went for 20 episodes.
We're going to do an episode about all that. I can't wait. That's one of my favorites. And I think it's some of Luke's best stuff.
He's so happy
from that and all of that stuff. How great is the actress that played Erica?
How was she cast?
Nolene Thornton. Yeah, she came in red, and she just had such an unusual look. You know, she was so not typical like a Hollywood kid. You know, she wasn't pretty, but she was adorable. You know,
she looked like his sister. She really did.
She looked like a real person.
And that Carrie Keane had, she's from Canada too, actually. but yeah,
Jason's thing was only to the guy. Posse. She wasn't part of that.
No.
Also in this episode, Dan Rubin's out of here, and we see Jesse Vasquez for the first time. What's your guys' thought on? We haven't talked about him at all yet. What's your thoughts on Jesse Vasquez? And I would like to do a little bit more about this too. I know we say that there are people probably like, okay, when, you know what I mean? But we could do a whole thing on Andrea and her relationships or whatever. But what about Jesse Vasquez? How did that come to be?
Well, Gabrielle told Mr. Spelling that she wanted to have a baby. Mr. Spelling gave her his blessing, and then she would tell me that this was something on her mind. And I said, "Well, you gotta talk to Mr. Spelling. I can't. Really."
And you're saying Gabrielle in real life wanted to have a baby, and then said she's got to talk to Aaron Spelling about it.
Yes, I said that you need to tell Mr. Spelling about that because. And give him and see if that's something that is okay. And remember, Gabrielle's a little older than the rest of the crew, so it was her time to be doing this. She was being responsible about it. And Mr. Spelling, I think, was in fact, she said this on the other
the real show
thing we did for the real show. When Aaron said, "Well, I can't believe you're telling me before the fact. Most people would always be after the fact. I'm pregnant." And so once she got pregnant, that was, okay, now we've got a deal. So the question was, we knew that early on, unlike Donna, Andrea is going to lose her virginity. And it just seemed like the guy she would lose it to first, we didn't want to make it that was who impregnated her. It just seemed wrong. And it just seemed right that, it would be a resident guy, they give that name RA. It was in my schools, they would call that. And, that went, and he was, I forget if he played anyway.
His name was Matthew. His name was Matthew Peretta.
Yeah.
Matthew Peretta.
That's Dan Rubin. That's Dan Rubin.
Yeah. And again, it was just a natural thing. They were attracted. They're in college. In college, you can have sex. You're not in high school anymore. And so we got that out of the way. And the other one was that, again, well, why don't we are always on the chopping block, or the critics and those are haters really always would get us for race. So, okay, we don't have someone of Hispanic origins in our cast. Let's go that way. And that's how the character Jesse Vasquez came out.
Now, we see the Jesse Vasquez character in the first episode of the season. He's a bartender, when they take Val out on the town. So he did get introduced. And
I mean,
you know where I thought he was introduced at the Walsh anniversary.
Yes,
I think you're getting it confused.
He comes again there. The first time we see him in the first episode, when they all go out in the nightlife, showing Valerie how cool they are.
But that's season 5. We're back here in season 4.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
30 years. You know,
having like me. What year is it? What day is it?
Wow.
Two different things.
But you're right. He was a bartender initially. We were introduced to him previously
as a bartender at the Walsh's 20th anniversary.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. What'd you have, Lily? You had something?
I was going to say that Zara thinks we should have brought back Gil Myers and have Andrea have an affair with him and end up pregnant with him.
There you go. All right, I saw that. So
if you had picked up the phone and called me back then, that was a serious plot point. We could have kicked that around. Loved Gil Myers, and in fact, Mark Kiley is the name of the actor. He was the other one I thought about a lot before I went with Jonathan Grimes to answer Jessica's question there.
Was Howard the radio guy named after Howard Stern?
Probably so, just as a goofy thing, because we did a Howard Stern thing also sometime during this year, like a fantasy, I think.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think Howard Stern had admitted that he was a big fan of the show.
We tried to get him.
Yeah,
but he wouldn't do it.
Really? Oh, and season 6 and 7? Oh, yeah.
No. It was when you were there.
Really?
It was one of the episodes that starts off with like a dream sequence that Donna's having.
Oh, and it turns out to be the landlord. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it was cool.
Yeah.
Howard was played by Zachary Thorne, who was a rock and roller, and he does a good job in that thing. You know, it's just kind of
I buy it.
The college stuff looked very real to me. I thought it was really played nicely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I really like the look of seeing the crunch time, going back to that, just from and again, fans should know, one of the things that I'm doing with this podcast and stuff is I'm getting a chance to look at episodes for the second time. And I'm probably going to write about that, call it a second look at some of them and see things differently. And one thing that was really pleasing to see in this one was our set of the student union.
Yeah.
That was a mighty set, and allowed you to do one thing. When you build a big set like that and you take up a half a stage, you want to make it that you have little areas to shoot, this corner, that corner, this. And we had a very good production designer named Tom Victor, and he designed a good functional place. Really looked real to us.
I loved it.
And I'm just curious, to the people that are watching and commenting, how many people would like to read that book that Charles just talked about? I know I would. So Lily raised her hand.
I hope so. Otherwise, I'm just going to spend the rest of the time catching waves, and I'm going to come into my office anymore. I need support.
There you go. Melinda says a book would be cool. So there you go.
All right,
get to work. Yeah. Cool. And now, should we talk about the gay storyline in the coffee house? Do you want to jump in? Should we talk a little bit about that, or do you want to save that for another time? What do you want to do, Chuck?
Well, I think did you think that we finished Crunch Time? I mean, I think we got into the gay episode.
Yeah, I think Crunch Time.
We should do the black ball scene because Muntz is here.
Definitely. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I felt too.
I forgot the.
And I love the fact of this scene that that you really did see the essence of what a fraternity is.
Yes.
One of John Sears' henchmen, John Sears feels like, that he would. Thanks.
He outs himself to his friend. He outs himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he outs him. That's right. He tells it, and the guy can't go along with it. He has that line that says, "If you do this to him, you do it to anyone."
Yeah.
And it's a very dramatic moment because the first one, and then the second person is up. But it's even more dramatic, and that person is Muntz. What is Muntz going to do with his ping pong ball?
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. So do you remember?
What did you do, Ryan? What?
Do you remember that, Ryan?
I took a long, hard look at John Sears, and I couldn't believe it. I was disgusted, and if given the chance, I'd do it again.
We just had
Steve
Muntz.
Sanders, man.
Who came up with the test? I'm so curious. Like, how did you guys?
I guess I did. I don't mean, we were right. I was writing these things with Richard. We were doing that, and the same time we were doing Windstruck. We wrote. Remember, Chuck? We did.
Yeah.
The two of us did 2 episodes at the same time because there were some storylines that were flowing together, and then we put them together. And we just made it up. It made sense. A black ball ceremony. I mean, I did some research on the black ball ceremony, so that's kind of how they went. You kind of put the ball in front of the guy, and that's what we did. But it played. Chuck, do you remember the director's name
of this one? Was it?
Yeah.
Was it Les Landau?
Yes.
Here we go. Ding ding.
How do you guys remember this stuff?
Because I looked it up before. When we watched it today, Larry and I both independently watched it, and I looked at the credits of and he was the director.
I said to Lilly, "Are you going to watch this episode?" She said, "I've seen it so many times."
But I watched it again anyway.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lilly. But for me, this was probably since we made it, I probably did watch this one time before. Probably saw it on syndication or something. I
haven't seen it in 30 years or whatever. I never saw it. I haven't.
So, we were so big. You know what they say about people who were involved in television? They used to say this about the Emmys, that the people who were making television never voted for the Emmys because they never had time. They never, you had to do certain things. It's just when you were making television, you didn't have time to watch anybody else's shows. Just especially when you're doing as many as we were.
Magda brings up the line, "You don't even know what the test is. I don't care as long as it's me and you." That's such a great line that you guys. Is that you, Larry?
Well, since we're doing great lines, I do take a few minutes.
Hold on, Chuck, your audio is freaking. It's doing that.
Lines that I really like. And I took notes while I was watching it. The first was Carol Potter says when comes back and says, "Well, this is the end of my romantic evening." Because But the one when Steve sits down and talks to Kelly and says, it has the line, "Well, I've already had you." She says, "I've had
that
it."
was great.
I've already had you.
I love
And
that.
that's the first time that I think that Kelly ever acknowledged that she, as in high school, had a sexual relationship with him, and did it with a smile, and there was some degree of affection.
Yeah.
It always was.
Oh, it was always off-putting. Yeah, like she didn't want to have anything to do with him. That's
But it was nice. And so those were the 2 lines that stuck out to me.
I thought that was.
And then,
terrific.
my favorite song.
There. And the other thing was you seeing Brenda and Kelly at Dylan's house
Yes.
together was terrific. I thought.
Yes,
So much
we do see very less of.
Yeah, that was a terrific scene because they were so natural and they were friendly in this, and they're playing with Noli with the character Erica and Dylan at the house. But what you can see Brenda was hardly in this episode.
I was going to say,
and that was how we did it. We, let's have her do something. And she was in the way, and she was very good in it. But this was one of the ones she got her look back. She started taking better care of herself almost the moment she said, "I'm not coming back." And so when I see her in this episode, I know she's not physically at where she was or where she'd like to be or could be.
Yeah.
The other thing, Chuck, remember what happened when we wrote these double ups? We had to balance the actors out. So if you had a big part in one of the episodes, you probably were going to have a smaller part in the other one because we had to get actors back and forth to shoot during the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So that really affected. There was a mathematical kind of quality to the story writing we had to do.
Right, and
the double ups, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, one day. Yeah. Those are fascinating because when you hear, like we did this, I don't want to get into it, but the Stones episode, we've kind of mentioned that the Stones episode also had the fire at the same time, which is 2 heavy moving parts that I still can't even imagine how you guys you have
That was that was probably the hardest one. And the reason, well, you know, because
we'll get into that. Yeah. But we'll go there. So we have this test. Muntz, do you have memories of doing those scenes with the actors and whatnot, and being doing all that stuff? I don't mean to keep calling you Muntz, by the way. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I had somebody ask me today on Facebook saying, "Hey, would you ever get mad if I called you Muntz?" And I just laughed. And I'm like, no, because that was me.
When I see you, I just said Muntz. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I keep doing that. Yeah.
It's all good, man. Don't worry, don't sweat it. Yeah, I remember a lot of doing 90210. I don't necessarily remember all of the episodes because I did quite a few and did some of the double up episodes as well. But I was also doing other TV shows and commercials, movies of the week and stuff like that. But this particular episode, the blackball episode, I remember, and I was friends with JP, and but to still get into the character part of it, it's like how dare you go against Steve Sanders? So of course I'm going to vote for what's right. I remember the look, because a lot of people, when they saw the episode, said, "Man, that look you gave him when you dropped the ball in the little fish bowl was priceless. I felt that to my soul."
Me too. Danielle said me too. So
thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Let me see. Do I have it here? Did you send that to me? Maybe
I did.
Let's see. Here it is. How about
my goodness? You got to send me that picture, please.
Yeah,
I will.
Look at that.
I had here. Yeah.
Oh, there's Pete. John Sears.
There he is, right? Yeah. Couple more. Let's see if we have any more pictures. This is Steve not allowed to play. And Steve is victorious in that.
And Steve is really good in this episode again. I mean, he really is strong.
Tell me you have a shot of me staring down at the moon pie.
I don't know if I have that one. I saw it and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to pull that one. What were you saying, Larry? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just saying, Ian did just a fantastic job. I mean, you just really feel for him, and you feel his joy. I mean, it's a great moment when he starts seeing what's happening. It just seems impossible. He's going to win this thing, and he does, and it's great.
I also love the scene talking about favorite lines and stuff like that. I like when Brandon and Steve are sort of sitting at the cafeteria and they're talking, and Steve almost doesn't even realize that Brandon is in this shit because of Steve. You know what I mean? He's tutoring, but Ian is able to play things like that so well, isn't he? Just the not understanding it, right?
Compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we're good with Ryan, right? I think, Chuck, should we talk about the? Or you have some Ryan questions, Lily?
Well, since we have Ryan, before we let him go, I would like to hear from Muntz a little bit about the Brownies episode.
The Brownies episode.
Yes, the prank where you have the brownies and you steal the statue from the other university.
Oh yes. That's right. Man,
the brownies have like
laxative in it, right?
That's lax.
Yeah.
Lax in the brownies.
That's right.
Southern California.
That would be. The other thing I really remember about that one is we actually filmed it at the University of Southern California. One of the few ones. We did one episode at UCLA in high school, and then this was our SC one to balance it out.
Yep.
Are we good with Ryan, Chuck?
We're always good with Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah, hey, as a matter of fact, if you guys ever dive into these episodes and I happen to have that little part in there, just hit me up. More than likely, I have time to come and talk about it. And now you're making me want to go dig into my DVDs and watch the show all over again.
Yeah, we'll definitely love to have you back. But Chuck, do you want to talk about that? The thing that we're going to talk about with the coffee shop and all that?
You don't think that we already did it?
I think we got it. Yeah, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure that.
Good. No, I think we say goodbye to Ryan, and then we can say goodbye to Lily. And we could say goodbye to Larry, and you can say goodbye to me, and then you could go on.
We're good.
We can have our dinner.
Yeah.
Dinner. Yeah.
Before we go, I want to let everybody that next week we're going to do a split week again. We're going to do a bonus episode. So on Wednesday, Chuck and I are going to cover with Jessica, right? We're going to do
Jessica Klein.
Yep, we're going to do Donna Martin Graduates. So we're going to dig deep into those couple of episodes, and that is such a significant.
Donna Martin Graduates.
Donna Martin masturbates. I heard.
That's right. But and interesting too, Jessica. I was thinking about it today, and that knowing she was going to come on with it, she and Steve wrote the first episode in season 1 that actually had a designated plot for Donna.
Oh,
which was that she had a learning disability.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. It's the first time. So Jessica has a real long relationship with the character of Donna, and I think it'll be and she's great, and we'll have fun.
We Larry and I we did an episode with Jessica Klein, and she's just phenomenal. Yeah. She brings so much to the show. So I'm excited to have her. And then on Friday for the bonus episode, Larry and I, and we'll figure out who, are going to cover Snowbound. A season 6 episode.
Chuck. I know there's a lot of cocaine in it. That's much I know.
Where Kelly gets hooked on cocaine. So we're going to cover all those things. And
one time we should do one that's just all of the characters, all of the drugs. Really, because she had diet pills and who knows what. There was always alcohol.
Post in one of the groups today. Which out of the main characters was the only one to never try drugs or alcohol? And it was just Andrea. It was just
Andrea. Okay. Lily, do you have any questions about this topic this week? I don't think I asked you that question. I'm sorry about that.
No, you guys really covered everything that I had as far as this particular episode goes.
Okay, awesome. Cool. And guys, don't forget, I'm going to pop this up here on the bottom here. Do not forget to go check out the shirt shop, Beverly Hills 90210 showshop.com. We have some really cool shirts. I got a legacy t-shirt. Muntz, I'm sorry. Do you want one of these? I'm happy to send you one, man.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'd love one.
All right, cool. All right, guys, I think we kind of wrapped this week. We'll see you next week again for 2 big shows, Donna Martin Graduates and Snowbound. Thanks for all the comments and whatnot. Looking forward to it. Thanks again, guys. All right, we're gonna go.
Before we stop this, where can we go watch these little web series that you're doing?
Very cool. Yeah, so it's at Beverly Hills 90210show.com. Takes you directly to the YouTube, or you can find it on Facebook. Or if you prefer to listen to us and not see our beautiful faces, you can get it on iTunes or Spotify and all the places that podcasts are under the Beverly Hills 90210 show. Yeah, we've done some fun ones already. All right.
You should join our Facebook groups, Ryan, if you're not in them already.
He's not going to.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
and you want good ratings, right? You want people to do something. You, Lily and Peter, what do they have to do? Who's listening to this and may have liked what they heard?
So continue giving those 5-star reviews. I'm getting specifically the number now. The 5-star reviews on iTunes helps us so much because it helps to get us, people to find out about the episodes in iTunes and all the podcasts are. So that's always awesome if you guys can do that. So we're also going to do another contest. I don't know what it's going to be yet. We're talking it through. So thank you guys again for this episode. Always fun. Wednesdays. My favorite.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yep.
Thanks,
all right,
everybody.
Nice to see you guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Later,
See you
guys.
later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.